A man doesn't become sexually addicted to a woman simply because of how she looks, but because of how she makes him feel in her presence. It's not the shape of her body that haunts his memory, it's the emotional imprint she leaves on his soul. The secret isn't in performance, it's in energy. It's in the way she connects to herself first, how she radiates confidence from the inside out, and how her sensuality is rooted in presence, not pressure. A woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she attracts. She's not desperate for validation because she's already full. Her sensuality isn't something she uses to hook a man, it's something she embodies effortlessly. When she enters the room, her energy arrives before she speaks. She knows her body is sacred, and that's what makes it irresistible. She's not trying to prove she's sexy, she simply knows she is. That knowing, that calm, magnetic confidence is what makes a man crave her. She is not afraid of desire. She doesn't shrink in the presence of her own passion. In fact, she welcomes it. She has a relationship with her own body, her own emotions, and her own pleasure. And that relationship is what makes hers so potent to a man. She doesn't withhold to manipulate, nor does she give too easily to please. She moves with intention. Every glance, every word, every touch is deliberate, and it lingers. Sensual confidence begins in the unseen. It isn't about what you wear or how you move. It's about the energy you hold within yourself, the way you carry your body, and the quiet self-assurance that radiates through your presence. A woman who embodies sensual confidence doesn't need to perform to be noticed. She doesn't act sexy, she is. She owns the space she stands in, not to impress anyone, but because she's rooted in herself. Her confidence isn't showy, it's magnetic. It's not loud, it's deeply felt. She doesn't rely on approval or validation to feel desirable. Her sense of worth is not tied to how a man reacts to her. Whether he notices or not, she still knows who she is. That knowing is what creates the pull. She doesn't need to exaggerate or prove anything. She understands that real seduction begins with subtlety. Her eyes speak before her lips do. Her movements are slow and intentional, and her energy says, "I'm whole without you, but I'm open to connection." This balance of self-possession and openness is what draws men in, not just physically, but emotionally and energetically. Unlike performance, which is rooted in fear and the need to be accepted, sensual confidence comes from self-trust. She trusts her instincts. She listens to her body. She doesn't fake pleasure or pretend to be turned on for someone else's ego. She knows her own desires and she expresses them with authenticity. There's no need to act out fantasies that don't belong to her just to be liked. She brings her real self into the moment, her sounds, her rhythms, her preferences, and that raw truth is what makes her unforgettable. She also doesn't rely on external techniques to keep a man's attention. Her power comes from within. While others might chase trends or mimic what they think men want, she tunes into her own inner current. Her sensuality is fluid, ever-changing, and deeply personal. She doesn't move for the audience. She moves because she feels good in her skin. That pleasure becomes contagious. When she walks into a room, people feel her presence not because she's trying to be seen, but because she is so deeply connected to herself that it can't be ignored. This kind of woman doesn't use her sensuality as a weapon or a trap. She uses it as a language, a form of communication that says, "This is who I am. I don't need to be chased, but I'm worth pursuing." That kind of energy doesn't just create attraction, it creates obsession. Not because she manipulated someone into wanting her, but because she awakened something real in him, a memory, a feeling, a hunger for truth. That truth lives in the way she breathes, touches, and speaks, with depth, presence, and power. She is the experience, not the performance. When a woman is truly present with a man, she creates an emotional imprint that lingers far beyond the moment. Presence is more than just physical proximity. It is emotional availability, mental stillness, and soulful attention. It is the ability to look at a man and not only hear his words, but feel the silence behind them. A woman who lives in presence does not rush to respond or perform. She holds space. She becomes the rare moment in his life where he feels fully seen, fully heard, and fully accepted without needing to impress or explain. That kind of presence is unforgettable. A man can be surrounded by people all day long, but if he never feels emotionally touched, he remains starved. Most women offer their bodies or their words, but a high-value woman offers her awareness. She leans into the moment with him without distraction. She doesn't scroll through her phone. She doesn't drift off in thought. She doesn't bring up irrelevant noise. She stays with him. And in doing so, she gives him a taste of something sacred. He feels the warmth of her gaze, the softness in her tone, the attunement in her body language. This quiet intensity begins to mark his emotional memory. She doesn't fill the space with endless talking. Her silence is just as powerful as her voice because it's intentional. It says, "I'm here, I see you." And for a man, being deeply seen is far more intimate than being touched. Her presence becomes the mirror through which he reconnects with his own truth. She's not trying to impress him. She's trying to understand him. That curiosity, that calm acceptance begins to open parts of him he didn't even know were closed. And the more he opens, the more he associates that vulnerability with her. That is how the emotional imprint forms. What makes it so potent is that it doesn't rely on external stimulation. It's not about how beautiful she looks or how seductive her body is. It's about how deeply she feels him in the moment. When he shares something, she doesn't dismiss or deflect. She leans in emotionally and energetically. Even in silence, she's connected. He feels safe with her, not just safe from judgment, but safe to explore himself. And that safety becomes addictive. Presence also means she isn't ruled by insecurity. She doesn't overthink what to say next or second-guess her every move. She simply allows the connection to unfold. Her grounded energy becomes an anchor for him, while the world moves fast and relationships often feel superficial. Her presence feels like a rare exhale. He remembers how he felt in her energy far more than what was said. It becomes a memory he returns to, a feeling that other women don't replicate. That imprint becomes his emotional craving, his quiet addiction, because it awakened something in him that felt rare, intimate, and completely real. When a woman is deeply connected to her own pleasure, she becomes magnetic in a way that no performance can imitate. Her attraction doesn't come from trying to please or impress. It radiates naturally from the relationship she has with herself. She doesn't seek external permission to feel good. She doesn't wait for someone to touch her right or say the right words to unlock her sensuality. Instead, she lives in her body. She breathes fully, moves slowly, and allows herself to feel without shame. Her pleasure is not conditional, it's not performative, it's hers. And that ownership of her inner world is what makes her irresistible. A man becomes drawn to her because she's already full. She doesn't approach intimacy from a place of emptiness. She doesn't enter the bedroom hoping to be validated. She knows how to bring herself joy, peace, and ecstasy. When she shares herself with a man, it's not because she needs something, it's because she wants to express something. Her body is not a tool for approval. It's a sacred space she knows intimately, and when she invites someone in, it's not out of fear of losing them, but out of love for her own truth. Being connected to her own pleasure also means she understands her boundaries. She knows what feels good and what doesn't, not based on what others expect, but based on what her own body tells her. She doesn't fake reactions or pretend to enjoy things that don't serve her. She doesn't rush past her own discomfort to satisfy someone else's ego. She moves at her own rhythm, and that rhythm becomes intoxicating. A man feels this difference. He feels that she's present, real, and responsive, not for show, but from a place of deep personal alignment. Her connection to pleasure also affects how she touches, how she kisses, how she looks into his eyes. It's not mechanical, it's not rehearsed, it's intuitive and alive. Her energy is so rooted in herself that it draws him in without words. He becomes fascinated not just by her body, but by her aliveness, by the way she enjoys herself, by the way she takes her time, by the way she is unapologetic in her hunger and softness. This is the kind of woman who doesn't just experience pleasure, she becomes pleasure. What makes her unforgettable is that her pleasure isn't dependent on the man in front of her. It's enhanced by him, yes, but it doesn't rely on him. She brings her own fire to the moment. She doesn't give herself away hoping to feel desired. She chooses to be in the moment because it already feels good to be her. That kind of embodied energy is addictive. It teaches the man something deeper about connection. He doesn't just want to touch her, he wants to understand her, feel what she feels, and return to that space where pleasure is not something performed, but something profoundly lived. There is a profound difference between mystery and manipulation, and a high-value woman knows exactly where that line exists. She doesn't use games to confuse or control a man. She isn't driven by fear, insecurity, or a need to dominate the emotional dynamic. Instead, she uses mystery and intention like a gentle current, quiet, consistent, and deeply compelling. Mystery isn't about hiding who she is or playing hard to get. It's about honoring her own timing, protecting her inner world, and revealing herself in layers that invite curiosity rather than demand attention. She doesn't need to overshare, over-explain, or overcompensate. She lets things unfold. This woman understands that there is power in pacing. She doesn't rush into connection, nor does she emotionally flood a man just to feel close. She isn't afraid of silence or space. She knows that real intimacy builds over time, and part of what keeps a man coming back is the feeling that there's always more of her to discover. Not because she's withholding, but because she's intentional. She doesn't throw her deepest truths onto the table to earn affection. She reveals them gradually as trust deepens. And each time she opens a new part of herself, it feels like a gift, not a transaction. Unlike manipulation, which seeks to control outcomes, intention seeks to create connection with purpose. Her words are chosen carefully. Her actions are not about provoking jealousy or testing loyalty. They're about honoring her own values. She doesn't pretend to be unavailable just to create chase, but she does guard her time and energy with discernment. She doesn't flirt to feel powerful or seduce just to conquer. She connects because she is genuinely drawn, and that sincerity, paired with emotional depth, creates a pull that no manipulation ever could. A man senses this difference immediately. When he's around a woman who is mysterious by nature, not by design, he feels it in his body. He's intrigued, not confused. He's drawn in, not pushed away. He doesn't feel tested, he feels invited. Mystery, in her hands, becomes a kind of sacred tension, where he's not quite sure what she'll say next, but he knows whatever it is will come from a real place. And in a world filled with surface-level interactions, that depth stands out. She knows that true power lies in authenticity, not in strategy, that the most intoxicating kind of mystery comes from being fully herself, without apology, without performance. She allows space for him to wonder, to explore, to earn her, not because she's trying to manipulate his desire, but because she respects herself enough not to offer it all at once. She becomes the woman who stays on his mind, not because she's elusive, but because being with her feels like being let in on something sacred, something earned, not given too soon, something intentional, not forced. And that kind of emotional mystery is what creates the addiction he never saw coming. When a man feels emotionally safe and truly seen by a woman, something inside him begins to unravel in the most powerful way. It is not just her beauty that draws him in, it's the sanctuary she creates with her presence. Emotional safety is a rare space for many men, especially in a world that constantly tells them to toughen up, hide their feelings, and be stoic. But when a woman meets him without judgment, without pressure, and with full acceptance of his emotional truth, he starts to open up in ways he didn't even know he needed. She becomes the one person he doesn't have to perform for. This kind of emotional space is not created through words alone, but through energy. Her softness doesn't mean weakness, it means receptivity. She listens not just with her ears, but with her whole being. She doesn't interrupt, correct, or immediately fix. She allows him to express his fears, his shame, his doubts, and his wounds without pulling away or making it about herself. She can sit in the discomfort of his emotions without running. That ability to hold his vulnerability with grace becomes his emotional refuge. He begins to feel safe to express the things he hides from the world, the doubts he silences, the tears he swallows, the burdens he carries. And in that space, she doesn't diminish him. She doesn't use his openness against him later. She sees the strength in his softness. She honors the courage it takes to be vulnerable. Her eyes don't say, "Be stronger." They say, "I see all of you, and I'm still here." That gaze alone can undo years of guardedness in a man's heart. It tells him that he can exhale now. Feeling emotionally seen is not just about being heard, it's about being understood. She picks up on what he doesn't say. She notices the tension behind his smile, and she validates his emotions without needing to fix them. She mirrors back to him his worth, not based on what he achieves or how masculine he appears, but based on who he is at his core. This is not about inflating his ego, it's about affirming his humanity. What happens next is transformation. The man who once held back now leans in. The one who avoided emotional connection now craves it with her. He doesn't just desire her body, he longs for her presence, her listening, her quiet knowing. She becomes the woman he feels safe returning to again and again, and in that safety his desire deepens. Emotional connection amplifies sexual energy. The more seen and accepted he feels, the more he wants to give, protect, and adore. Not because he has to, but because something inside him has awakened. That is the power of emotional safety. It doesn't just attract a man, it binds him to the woman who made him feel like home. When a woman learns to embody her sensuality with self-awareness, lead with emotional depth, and connect through presence rather than performance, she becomes unforgettable. The strategies of manipulation, control, or surface-level seduction fade in comparison to the magnetic pull of genuine feminine energy rooted in confidence, mystery, and emotional safety. A man becomes addicted not to her body alone, but to the way she makes him feel, alive, seen, and safe in ways he rarely experiences. She becomes the echo in his heart, the calm in his chaos, the imprint he can't forget. Because true addiction isn't created through tactics, it's born from energy, connection, and the silent power of a woman who knows her worth.